My name's Gary Spangler, and I'm a voice artist, and that has a number of different meanings to a lot of people. I have 30 years what they call on the board, so a theater actor, and I've done all types of different characters. So voice acting is something where the genre finds you. You know, you can say I want to do I want to be in animated films and do that. But if they don't choose you, if it doesn't come your way, it's not working. So audiobooks is something where that kind of found me. And an example of what I do in 2023, I did a trilogy of books where I performed 100 characters in 5 different languages. It's all kinds of different accents and different types of individuals. And that skill set, I was told by my coaches, you need to work on video games. And I was like, well, animation is just kind of over the top, and audiobooks is very low key. It's like you're sitting next to someone on the couch telling a story. So it's kind of like this. With video games, what you had in the 80s and 90s, it's really performance art. It's almost Shakespearean in nature because you have to have the acting chops, and it has to be so very grounded. And so that ties into my theater background. So then had my demos made for video games, and and now here I am getting some jobs here and there and hitting the indie market hard.
How did you even know that this was a skill that you had? How did you even get to that point?
Identification is a big part of it. So, and it comes from my sons. Mario Brothers, that first set of games, you had Mario, you had Duck Hunter. I mean, I come from that generation where I'm sitting there with my boys and I'm showing them how to play. And then the roles reversed. Zelda comes along and I'm like, I don't understand any of this. Okay, Dad, here's how you hold the controller. What is X and Z for? Do we need Y? So they taught me, and that's when they really identified by looking at some of my old footage of being on stage. And they're like, you need to get into video games. This is something where they could use your skills and your level of acting.
It's so many smaller jobs within the gaming community that a lot of people just don't think about. And I mean, somebody has to voice these characters, obviously.
I do make a decent living on NPCs. And that's a quick hit in the studio and you're out, and all of a sudden you have residuals coming in. Or, hopefully it doesn't change from that, but that's the way it's been.
Talk about like some of the things you have voiced over. What's some of your favorites, the things somebody would either know you by or know about?
That's the unfortunate part of the gaming industry. Everything is under an NDA. I can name studios. Let's just say I've visited, spent some time in, which is like Titmouse, got some good games. Also Moonbug and One Line Studios and Deck 9. Right now, I focus my direct marketing on indies because just having an understanding of business, and it's a business at the end of the day, is indies turn into the medium levels and turn into AAAs until they get swallowed up by EA. There's a Star Wars quote by Liam Neeson. There's always a bigger fish.
Yeah, always. I was reading over a little about you and stuff, and it's like done some things within other industries as well, like automotive and things like that. Talk about the bigger picture as far as what you do. How far can you take it? What is the goal at the end of the day? What is voice acting to you?
That's an excellent question, and that runs deep. My 6-year-old grandson, at some point, he's going to be, in 10 years, he's going to want to see what Opa has done. And so when you're talking about that, then I want to be on some of these AAA titles. And I want to see, that's him. You like playing this? That's my grandpa. So, but to get to there, then it is playing in supporting roles and character roles. That's always been my jam. I never worried about doing the leading man, anything, because I can pull off accents, and I studied hard to pull off different accents and, from around the world. You do the different accents, and if it's accepted by the producers and directors, then you go by what they say.
How difficult was it for you to perfect those accents and those little nuances that kind of go with it? What was that process like learning all that?
Well, I give credit to PJ Auckland. He's a great dialect coach, and he's got his own toolkit that I always refer back to. I also have a dialect coach for every project that I do. So it's an ongoing process. A lot of it is you get from YouTube, and a lot of it's visiting people. So like if I talk to my Russian friend who I happen to work with, and I know that sometimes it is top of the throat, but it also has a different pacing.
Yes.
And then there's the Liam Neeson down in Belfast. But he's not going after some Lucky Charms, which is the up and down, like you would see in the Dairy show. That was on the Netflix. And it's listening.
Yeah.
And it's not mimicry, but learning those affectations on the different words. And that's a key thing is an actor's trick is find a couple of words or a sentence that'll snap you in to that accent, and then you go for it right from there. And it takes time.
As far as NPCs and video games, so what is the technique as far as bringing that character to life? Do you already have a sort of feel for the character and how you're going to voice it beforehand? Do you kind of wait to see what type of character it is before you kind of figure all that out? How does that go about?
Especially if it's already been drawn up. Give me a picture. Give me an illustration. And that starts it out. And then you have sides, which will also, you can pull what a character's intentions are out of the dialogue. But also the writers will say, I want this character to be 300 pounds and have a lot of anxiety. Well, if someone's got a little bit of anxiety and all of a sudden he's talking like this, but he's really nervous. So it's putting all those things together, and then you apply the dialogue, and then you do like 3-4 different ways, and then see what the directors and producers like.
It's almost like the voicing is almost its own story in a way.
It is, because you can break it down, and this gets into scene study and theatrics, but the hero's journey. You find out where they're starting out, what obstacles they have to come, what's their end goal, do they even get there? And you can break that even in a few sentences. You can break that down.
As we kind of hit this tech boom and lean more into this AI stuff, vocals are starting to get, caught in that shuffle a little bit. Where do you see the voice acting vibe now as opposed to when you were kind of learning it and coming up?
When I was learning it, and we're talking, the first time I tried voiceover was in 2013. They threw me, I was shooting a regional commercial that I was in, and then they wanted me to dub everything in right on set. So they put 2 mattresses aside for me, some pillows over the head to protect that sound. And they said, do everything in 17 seconds, then do everything in 16 seconds. And so I was able to do that. So from that point, I kind of let it go, and I thought, whatever. But then around 2018, it seemed like that was going to be a good way to continue to act, but on a more consistent basis. Because what you see around me here is my Source Connect, the studio. So I can work with any producer in the world right from my home studio that I've got built out here. It's allowed me to be able to do that just with different settings and using different microphones. And each one has its own different type of performance. So that's kind of where I've come along, and now have a fully stocked tool belt. And that's where video games come in. That's where I've got a whole line of audiobooks that are set to come out, Westerns of all things. A really good writer, and he wanted me to do these for him. So that's what I've got on the docket, and got 8 more in the queue this year. And also I'm doing museum pieces. So it just runs the gamut, and they're all a different type of performance.
That was going to be my next question. Performance. How similar is it? How different is it? But it sounds like different avenues of similarity and difference.
If we're talking nonfiction, then you are performing as the narrator, and then you're trying to convey the essence of the author. And that's the same thing with a museum. I mean, whenever I have anything like a job like that, then I have to go to the museum, either physically or virtually, and just to get a feel, because it's very similar to a descriptive part of narration. Because in an audiobook or a book, the scenery, where the setting is, that's its own character. So that's going to have a different point of view. And there's about, 100 different point of views, because I can be talking about an entire landscape like it's a wide shot in a movie. I'll be describing it of the trees and the grass and the rolling hills. But when I'm talking to a character, and this character, and we're describing the scene, then all of a sudden you can hear how it's quieter, it's more intimate, and this is the thoughts that are going on within someone's head or back and forth between them. So, and that's the same thing with the museum piece. That's going to have a different feel, obviously, than an automotive piece, even though with automotive, that's changed. You don't have the big guy, come on down, doing that anymore. It's opened up for female voice artists to do a lot of the automotive spots, and they are awesome. They are really good at what they do. So, the game has changed. Flip back to what you were asking about AI, and AI has been with us for a while. You've got programmers that, to me, they're seeing a way to make headway into making some people get fooled, whether it's a real person or whether it's a computer. What they've had voice actors do is come in and read, say, 3,000 words, and then they could take those words and they can put them into a sentence. Well, now it's gotten down to where you can say a sentence, and that's all they need, because it's the vowels and consonants used to form that sentence that they can apply to other words. But now with generative AI, keep in mind, this is all IMO. Everybody's got their own different take and perspective, especially as businesses. With generative AI, they're trying to totally go from scratch. And if you're someone that was born after, say, 2010, that's all they know. They don't know the world of an LP and hearing that, hearing the bacon, right? Hearing that bacon pop. That was a beautiful part of hearing that music come out along with it. But they just only know digital, which is like 10% of the actual sound quality. You lose so much from an analog. And as a musician, I know you know that. But if that's what they're used to, and if a company says, well, if that's what they're getting used to, and I can do it for 10% of the amount of hiring someone, a real voice, that's where we're going to run into problems. And I think we're in the beginning stages of that. That's why you see a lot of hire human, especially when it comes to voice artists. And, I tell everyone that's doing the hiring, that's wanting to have real quality voiceover, pay attention to that. Is it worth it for your product to have a real voice? Because I've got my own AI voice. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah.
Well, if you want to hear the whole story, then you can really enjoy it while I'm telling it to you. It's a little different.
Quite right.
And to me as an actor, it's just like, I feel a little disgusted.
Because AI, it's a double-edged sword. I understand the goods and the bads that could potentially come with whatever said AI it is.
Even some of the platforms that I record for, just as an example, ACX or Audible, if they hear an audiobook performance and they can't hear a breath, we all breathe. As an artist, you don't want to sound like an asthmatic because that takes away from the performance of what you're trying to get across. But we breathe as humans. So they will kick that back. They will reject that. That's my experience, and hopefully that doesn't go away, but that way they know that it's real, but it's within their technical specifications too. So they're hearing you breathe a little.
What is the roadmap to a successful voiceover?
A big part of it is understanding, and it's what I was talking about before. I'm still learning all the ins and outs of the different types of point of view. Let's say an example was told to me by I referenced PJ Oakland, where let's say there's 5 characters in a room, and there's the lead character who's telling the story. But let's say that character leaves the room. Well, all of a sudden, the narrative in that room is no longer of the primary narration or primary narrator. Then it shifts to whoever. And it could be female, could be male, could be a child, could be an elderly person. So that's how it shifts. Now, if you can capture that and seamlessly move through the different point of view shifts, I think that's hugely going towards providing a good audiobook performance. And it's also little things like you ignore the punctuation. If you honor and worship every comma, that's not how we speak. So it's understanding what is written and how we speak, and also getting the characters right where they're not. And that's something I had to get over, making it less theatrical and more ground. Don't make your characters too pitchy, especially if I'm going from a female to a male character. Still in my voice, but let's work with the pacing of the dialogue. So, and all you have to know is who is talking, or if there's a different person talking in a scene. So it's understanding that, and it has a kind of intangible idea of flow. And I equate it to music. Some of my friends who are musicians, especially, who just work on instrumental tracks, trailers, that sort of thing. Audiobooks, you can teach that to an extent. And then there's certain techniques, like if there's an action scene, for me as an audiobook narrator, I don't speed it up and make it pounding like you would, like a camera would do, or the music would do.
Mm-hmm.
I slow it down. If there's a fight and he hit him here, and then he had to adjust, and then he, thrust the opposite direction. He blocked that punch.
You got this wealth of experience and you've done a bunch of different things. What's next? What is the next big thing? I know you say you would like to get into some AAA games and would like to continue this growth, but what is next for you, and just kind of what do you think is next for voicing over in general?
In the voiceover world is there's a lot of reluctance to join the union because there's so much work that's non-union. However, you make much less. And then with generative AI, there's been a recent case and contract where SAG-AFTRA had a protections contract with a video game developer. So if they used any artist, they couldn't illegally replicate the voices. And if you're not in the union, then you don't have any protections, but can't get in the union unless you're SAG eligible. And that has to come from working on a union project. So that frustration leads a lot of voice artists to doing their own thing. So I think collaboration, NAVA is a great organization that is fighting for protections for non-union artists. So it's grassroots movements that always been the power of people in any civic situation, and being able to get protections that are within the union, if that's what you want to do, because that's very high level, or outside of the union, if we can get protections that way. I'm up on Capitol Hill. I think that's the next thing is, as voice artists individually, to specifically answer your question, that's what we've got to do. We've got to be a player. Where I would come in, which is more of the Legend of Zelda motivation, adventure narrative type of games.
Mhm.
Well, those are going to cost money. And then the
Yeah.
venture capitalists would prefer to put their money into something that's already in process and making bank, as opposed to, let's try this new thing, but we need venture capital. And they're a little bit gun shy right now because a lot of companies are going out of business because they can't get enough venture capitalists to come together to make the production go. And it's understandable because it's a risk.
Mhm.
Because back again, it's a business.
In your opinion, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, where do you hope and where do you think you'll be within the voiceover game?
What I think, the people that do not have an extensive amount of training, do not have, and I'm not tooting my own horn, there's plenty of other, polished actors and actors with a lot of experience coming from different backgrounds. And if you don't have that, then you have to spend, it's a small business. So you're talking about $5, $10, $15,000 worth of training yourself,
Right.
setting up a studio, getting your demos cut, and then paying for marketing to get yourself out there, and unless you're willing to do that 10 years down the road, you're going to be out, because interactive voice recording, when you call the CVS and you get that phone message, that's going to be AI. Anyone who's relying on that income, they're gone. To an extent, there's a lot of high quality voice artists in different industries covered by Fiverr, but a lot of the voice artists that are simply plugging into their laptop and hoping for the best with their inexpensive, less than $50 microphone, they're not going to last, because those who are wanting the real voices, they're going to want somebody with the real setup and very high quality. And things like Source Connect is a big part of that. I can go live directed session at any level at anywhere in the world, and it costs money.
It sure
So
does.
that's where I see that in 10 years. Those that put in the time of training, those that put in the money, they're going to survive, and there's still going to be an income to be made here. My fear is AI is going to get a lot better. Think of 10 years ago. They're paying their programmers and engineers to work hard and come through with different, so that we can't tell. And that goes with the visual as well as the audio. That was why, that was one of the key parts of the strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike. Extras and people with small parts, which is, I had a small career in film with small parts, and they could have used my image, and boom, we're going to populate that in 100 other films and not pay you a dime. And that's what that part of the contract was all about, to my understanding. Those protections have got to come a long way. Otherwise, AI is coming.
Yeah.
That's my 10-year prediction. AI is coming. Skynet is here.
And it's already here. How can people find you?
My handle on social media is @SpanglerSpeaks. Like you see on my board right behind me, it's spanglerspeaks.com. This is my website where my demos are and my contact information. Just go there, take a listen, and enjoy.
Enjoy.